makes me feel like a man.
You want every team to lose any other game? Sorry. Bailey Zappi just put another dime. You know what? Wait. Time out. Are you kidding? That's what I'm gonna try to drop a mic.
Welcome to the Warner Brothas Podcast. I'm Kyle, of course, joined by my brother Keenan. Keenan, how you doing?
I'm great. There's been so much going over the weekend. Like, I feel in the sports world, the Clippers' loss got like way overshadowed because that Drake and Kendrick, which we're going to talk about later, just happened. But this weekend's been one of the most eventful weekend of my lifetime when it comes to sports and music. But I'm great. I'm great.
Yeah, no one should be more happy about this Drake Kendrick beef escalating to where it got than the LA Clippers, because it hit, in my opinion, it hit its peak right when the Clippers were going out against the Mavericks. But
fourth
we'll
quarter, Kyrie
about
hits
that,
that shot, and then Drake drops, and then Kendrick drops right after, and the world's in a frenzy, and then no one's talking about the Clippers dying in Game 6.
For sure. I cannot wait to talk about it. Let's actually start with basketball first, because I have a lot to say about the beef, and I feel like we can get through, highlighting the first round quicker and then previewing the second round, because we really only got one round underway. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, you could see by our predictions, this first round did not go the way I predicted. I thought there would be more competitive series. Not that they weren't uncompetitive, but I mean, if you would have told me only one's going 7, I don't think I would have believed you. But ultimately, it was.
And that's not the one I would have picked to go 7.
No, it's one of the ones I would have picked. But
one
not
of the
the
ones,
one.
but not,
I would have absolutely
wouldn't been the one.
I absolutely would have picked Clippers Mavericks. But where do we want to start? We had the classic Knicks Sixers first round series. We had Game 7 yesterday. It's been a while. It's been a week since we've talked. You know what? Let's start with the Game 7, and then we'll move towards the other series. So, we do have Magic Cavs yesterday. It's in Cleveland. Just to set the picture, the Magic are up double digits at one point in the second quarter. First quarter was a little rocky, as often Game 7s are. I don't think you'll be hard pressed to find a cleanly played Game 7. Like, you'll never find like a Game 7 that's just a beautiful offensive flow, scoring back and forth. They often all seem to be ugly. They especially start ugly. And this one did, of course. And then the second quarter, the Magic start to pull away. Then you get a comeback brewing at the end of the second quarter into the third quarter. And then the Cavs seem to take control of the game from there. What are your thoughts? What are your, were you rooting for the Cavs? Were you rooting for the Magic? What's your breakdown of this game from yesterday? What's your feelings?
I picked the Cavs to win this series. I was actually more so rooting for the Magic because I like how their team plays. I like Paolo a lot. Franz, I've liked Mo and Franz too, so I like their team. Not that it's like one of my favorite teams in the league, but I do like their roster. Donovan Mitchell, 89 points over 2 games, Game 6 and Game 7, second most all time to AI over under the Game 6 and Game 7 standpoint. He really showed why he is a budding, he wants to be in the superstar conversation, but he's right underneath it. He had at any point, he's kind of just like Jamal Murray, which is why their battle in 2020 was great. In any given game, he can be the best player on the floor, and he definitely performs in the playoffs, and that's what he did. He came through. They needed it, especially in that second quarter when Paolo was hitting threes early, Wendell Carter was hitting a couple threes. They were pushing this lead further and further. No one could get it going. Strus was a no-show early. Garland was a no-show early. And then Karis LeVert and Donovan Mitchell really helped bring him back in the second. And then when it goes to the third quarter, Max Strus has 11. And the rest is kind of history in the sense that the Magic could not respond to the run. Franz Wagner went 1 of 15 from the floor, 0 of 5 from 3. And then Jalen Suggs had only 10 points, and he was 2 of 10 for 3. So when you're 2 of your 3 most prolific scorers are 2 of 15 from the 3-point line is not going to help. Paulo did all he could, and even he was inefficient. He was 10 of 28 from the floor, so he got to the line a lot. But shout out to the Cleveland Cavaliers. The game was great. I really enjoyed the game, and it was as chaotic as you would expect. So everything I wanted from that Game 7 was exactly what I got.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, we knew going in the Magic's weakness was perimeter shooting, and that, at any given moment, if the Cavs got their 3-pointers going, that could very well be the difference. And honestly, I thought that would be the difference between, maybe a 5-game series or a 6 or 7-game series. And there was a lot of moments where the Cavs didn't shoot well in this series. And I think that's kind of how we got where we got. Obviously they alternated by winning their home games each. That's how we got to the Game 7. And you got 2 of the best defensive teams in the Cavs, in the Magic. So, it ended up being an underrated fun series. You had so many subplots in every other series. This one kind of just flew under the radar, even though there was great basketball being played. Game 7s, they honestly often come down to the other guys. Really doesn't even matter. Like, as long as your best guy plays well, which in this case, both of the best players showed out, Donovan Mitchell and Paolo. So, I mean, they both had incredible games. It looked like Banchero was going to have like a 50-point Game 7 there in the first half. I think because he had 25 early, right?
Yeah, he had 24 going into the
25.
second half.
I think he ended with 36. He played phenomenal. Franz, he lost his shot over the season, which is weird. So that was already a subplot. I don't think anyone would have guessed a 1 for 15 in Game 7. But the Magic were right there. Once the Cavs threes really started to get going in the second half, end of the second quarter even, you could see that kind of tilted the tides. And they don't look like a young team. They really, if you got a couple shooters there, I think they win that series because that defense is scary with all the length that they have, all the young guys that they have that kind of complement each other. They're all dogs. You got a player like Suggs who reminds me very much of Josh Hart as far as, just being a high-end role player. He will do everything. He will compete at the highest level. You saw him at the end of that game crying. You don't ever see players crying at the end of the first round because of a loss. That guy really gives a fuck. That's a guy you want on your team. That's a guy I would want on my team for sure. So, no, he didn't have the best shooting performance. It's not really his game, honestly. He's not really a scorer. But, the fact that he was out there at least trying, and I guess props to Franz for that too, for at least getting 15 shots up when clearly he was losing his confidence. But, they didn't really have anyone else they could go to. Where in the Cavs case, Garland wasn't playing well. He couldn't get in a rhythm. A lot of the guys could not get in a rhythm aside from Donovan Mitchell. Strus didn't get going until the second half. But they had Karis LeVert, who can get his own shot, who got going for them in the first half. He's one of the guys who really kind of just kept the ship straight, So you kind of need those guys in a Game 7 who can get their own shot, or at the very least can hit an open shot. And open shots are hard to come by in a Game 7. So weirdly, Karis LeVert is one of my X factors of this game. I wasn't expecting it, but he is someone who was not afraid, who was like, look, I can get my own shot against some of these Magic defenders. And, really cooled everything down for them in the second quarter when it could have got ugly. Because, again, the first quarter was fine. Second quarter, the Magic really took over. And I think it was 15. It could have got to 20, and it could have got to 25. And it would have been all kinds of ugly. We would have been talking about, next destinations for Donovan Mitchell. But props to Donovan Mitchell for not folding on his team. He could have had one foot out the door. He could have been, I'm going to sit back and shoot threes. Y'all do it. You know what I mean? Because they weren't playing well. And he competed to the end. He truly looked like he wanted to win these games. Not like other superstars we've seen when it's rumored that, maybe they're not going to sign their extension and this and that. So big props to Donovan Mitchell, props to the Cavs, and big props to the Magic as well. That was an underrated fun series. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Going forward, they definitely need some shooting. Hopefully, like kind of a shooter that can be semi a third option for them, because Jalen Suggs become their de facto third option, which isn't great because that's not his game. But he can get you 20 on a given night. I mean, he got you 22 in Game 6, so he can get you 20 on a given night. It's just like his best attributes are just defensively being an on-ball pest, off-ball being active, and then if
they kind of do it by committee.
Oh yeah. I was gonna say they absolutely do. I was gonna say it goes in line between from Paulo to Franz, and then really that third kind of swirls there. But Jalen was starting to become that third guy throughout this playoff series of a guy who, okay, we need to get him some shots, we need to get him some touches. Wendell Carter was playing well. He can stretch the floor a little bit too. Obviously, when Mo came into the game, he has an offensive prowess to him. So like Gary Harris can shoot. Jonathan Isaac can shoot, but like mainly a lot of these guys are defensive. So if they could add one more guy who can, like a little bit a better version of kind of what Karis LeVert was able to do, who can get you some shots off the dribble. I know Markelle Fultz off the bench was kind of doing that for them a little bit, but a guy in their starting rotation would be cool for that. But they have 90% of the pieces that they need. They just need a little bit more development from the younger guys, which all of them pretty much are that, and then just a couple added pieces, and they can really make a run. This offseason, if it goes right, they should be a true contender for next year.
Could be. I mean, you don't ever want to rush it. I think they were kind of ahead of schedule, way ahead of schedule in their development, honestly. I mean, with 47 wins, going 7 with the Cavs. I mean, the Cavs aren't a contender necessarily, but they're better than mid-tier as well. You know what I mean? They got top end talent. But, you know, like you said, that depending on how they play free agency, they got a ton of cap room. They'll be in the market for Paul George. They'll be in the market for Klay Thompson. You know, we said it after the Warriors lost. Orlando's a perfect spot for Klay. You know what I mean? If Klay wants to just sit in the corner and shoot threes, that's a spot. You know what I mean? He's not really going to have to worry about a heavy offensive load. The difference for Klay will be, you know, people in Golden State don't really care when he's having those bad shooting performances. When he goes to a new team and he's got these, you know, 0 of 11 games or 3 for 16 games, that's when it's going to get ugly. Those fans ain't going to give a fuck about his history or Game 6 Klay or anything like that. So that's the difference if and when Klay does move on. That's another topic for another day, though. But hypothetically, if we were going to Orlando, that would be the difference there. But, you know, we'll see. Again, props to the Magic. Love what they did. Banchero, man, he's like everything I ever wanted out of Melo. He is just so decisive with the ball. He reminds me of a mix of Tatum and Melo, honestly. I think he moves a lot like Tatum. The way he handles the ball and shoots the ball reminds me so much of Tatum. Like, just looks exactly like how he did
guys too.
At 1920. Both Duke guys, but he's got the Melo type body. Like, he's got a man's game to him. A lot of people compare him to LeBron going to the rim, which you can see, but his game more so reminds me of Tatum and Melo. But again, big props to the Magic. Shouts to the Magic. Let's move. What game you want to talk about next? Let's keep it first round. We'll get to T-Wolves Nuggets last.
Then do you want to talk? Are we talking just like the end of each game, like game 6s, or then did you want to talk previews for next series first? Or I don't know where you wanted to go with exactly.
Let's go round 1 first, just because we haven't talked since. I think we were talking mid-series round 1 last time we talked. So let's talk Sixers Knicks, because that was my absolute favorite first round series. It was absolutely chaotic. And this series is going to be remembered for a variety of things. I mean, you had maybe 3 bona fide classics out of the 6 games, for sure 2, with game 2 and how that ended, and game 5 with Maxey just going crazy, going absolutely crazy. You got a 50-point game from Joel Embiid, who was clearly less than 100%. Subplots all over. Brunson doing his thing. He had, I believe, 3 40-point games in the series. I could be wrong about that.
He had 3 40-point games. He had 40 every game in Philly. He had 40, I believe.
Insane. Then you had the subplot of the Knicks fans taking over in Philadelphia. Absolutely my favorite series. I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Sorry, you had cut out. Sorry, what was that last thing you said?
I said it was absolutely my favorite series. I would like to hear your thoughts on it. And maybe on the Knicks going forward.
All right, sorry, you had cut out, so I just didn't fully hear that part. It's definitely up there for being my favorite series. I really enjoyed that. I did like Mavericks Clippers a lot, even though it didn't end the exact same. This one was more thrilling throughout the entirety of it. So anyone who says it's their favorite, I get it. Jalen actually he had 39 the first game in Philly, then he had 47, then went back to New York and had 40, then had 41 in this game. He averaged like 41 and 12 in the 3 games in Philly or something close along those lines. So Jalen is really trying to cement himself as a top 10 player in the game, and we'll definitely, as we go on, we'll see more and more what he can do. These playoffs now we got rid of all the old play. Kyrie's the veteran of these playoffs. Like, he's the vet. And you've got Shea, obviously, I mean, Jokic and them are true players in the league. They've been around for a while, but Kyrie's like the old guy. You've got Brunson, Tatum, Shea, Luka, Jokic, Halliburton. Like, we're just talking about young guys who are stars. Brunson, of course. Like, this is a great time because it's almost a changing of the guard in the playoffs, where you actually have just all young.
Very much is.
It's just all young. Obviously, if I didn't even say his name, Anthony Edwards, but just all young guys who are trying to get into the top 10, top 5 category and start to cement their name in NBA lore. Like, it's a great time, and this series was just showing of that. Embiid, I want to definitely give props to him because you could clearly tell he wasn't 100% at all, and then with the Bell's palsy too, that I can't imagine how you just feel with that. Like, that's just got to be just odd while playing basketball. So, and then he averaged, I think, 33, 10, and 6 for this series, something along those lines. But shout out to Embiid for at least gutting it out and being on the floor. And then Maxey, game 5, I just looked at because I was watching it on my computer, and I was just like sitting there like, wait, what just happened? He hit the and 1-3, and you're like, maybe this could be something. Then Hart misses the free throw, and you're like, okay. And then they don't run anything. It's just a screen at half court. It's a one dribble pull up bucket. And you're like, oh, is this going to become the series where Maxey becomes like a household superstar name? And then they shut it down in game 6 and they just say no. Like, the Knicks are just not. Because if they go on to win the series because of that Maxey moment, that elevates him to, obviously the moment's already the moment, but that would have catapulted him up to like even another level. But overall, this series was amazing.
Yeah, I believe the total score in the series at the end of that game, and I could be wrong, but I believe it was within like 1 point or within, you know what I mean? It was within 1 possession, I believe. That could have been going into the game, but I believe I saw that stat after the game. Yeah, man, all the stars showed out. Brunson did what he had to do. And, oftentimes it was ugly because he's really the only guy who can get his own shot on that team right now, with Randall being out especially. Yeah. Maybe aside from Deuce McBride, but it's not at the same level. It's really my only question in this Pacers series with the Knicks, because I do think the Pacers do have more shot creators than the Knicks. They obviously don't play a lick of defense, really. So this is the definition of styles make fights when it comes to that. If you're Philly, or if you're a Philly fan, you really have to feel like, man, if Embiid's healthy, we win that series. At the same time, Embiid's out there. And as you just said, Embiid averaged something like 33, 6 assists, and 11 rebounds or something like that, and had a 50-point game 3. Embiid, for stretches, even in that game 6, he took over that third quarter.
Yep.
I believe he had 16 in the third. And it really looked like body language, the way the crowd was into it, it really looked like Philly was going to run away with that game. Really looked like they were just going to handle business, win game 6. Yeah, Maxey didn't have the greatest game 6, especially after having a legendary game 5, but that happens. Buddy Hield come out of nowhere, had his best game. Terrible shot there at the end with 3 seconds. Yeah, had his only game. I don't know why he shot that ball with 3.4 left. Like, there was 0.6 left on the clock, but he did. I'll never understand that. But, they got nothing out of Tobias Harris that game. Absolutely. Like, literally nothing. 0 points. who knows what he got for rebounds and assists. It doesn't matter, but you need more than him. And that's someone who stepped up in that game 5. He was someone, because, man, say what you want about Embiid and his stats, but in the fourth quarter, whether it was, fatigue, which they said it could have been, especially we saw that in game 4, the fatigue where he really wore down and he didn't take shots, but games 5 and 6, he didn't really take many shots in the fourth either. He played a little better in the overtime of that game 5, but man, he started reminding me very much of Chris Webber and Mike Bibby, the way he was looking to hand the ball off to Maxey.
Mm-hmm.
In part that's their offense, but there's times when he would have a shot or a look at the top of the key, and he's just looking to hand it off to Maxey. He's just looking to get rid of the ball. So I don't know. This still left a little to be desired for me from Embiid. I know he was probably less than 75%, less than 80%, whatever, but there's still more. There's still got to be, okay, my back's against the wall. Yeah, I'm tired. You got to have your game 6 LeBron versus Boston moment. And, I don't think necessarily the 50 points in game 3 was that. We certainly got that from Maxey. I continue to just be impressed with how Maxey continues to grow. He is, I talk about Suggs being someone I want on my team. Maxey's someone I want on my team as well. He is not afraid of any shot. And he's probably the only player I can think of aside from Kyrie where I feel like if they're going to the basket and even before they shoot, you're like, that doesn't really look like there's an angle there. I still think it's going in.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's reached that level for me where anytime he goes to the rim, I'm like, all right, I trust him to finish this even if there is no angle. So Maxey's a special player. He's going to continue to grow. I doubt we get really much drama from Philly. I don't think Embiid's out of there yet or is going to be asking for a trade, or they're obviously not going to be wanting to push him out. And they'll, of course, be in the Paul George market. They'll probably be his most aggressive suitor, aside from the Clippers wanting to retain him. And then, the Magic, I think, would be the third suitor there. But I'm very interested to see how their offseason goes, especially with Embiid supposedly playing in the Olympics. I can't imagine he will, but maybe this will give him the time off to get healthy. I wouldn't want him playing in the Olympics if I was Philly, but man, what a series. That was, I wouldn't call it a heavyweight bout. I would call Nuggets, Timberwolves a heavyweight bout, but that was a light heavyweight bout for sure. The Knicks are on their way to becoming a heavyweight. Philly could be a heavyweight. They can't stay out of their own way. I mean, we talked about it last time. I think it was that game 4 where they just could not grab a rebound. If they just box out in that game, they probably come away with that game. Knicks just got so many extra possessions. That almost got them in game 6 as well. So it's a lot of mental mistakes for Philly. They still got a lot of growing up to do. And that starts and ends with Embiid, really. Embiid's, despite all he did and despite how heroic he was at times in the series, I still think he's just got some more maturing to do as a player. But still a classic series no matter what. One of the all-time great round 1 series we'll ever have.
Yeah, the thing that's tough with Embiid is also his timetable's probably shorter than you would hope because of the fact that he gets injured so much. Hopefully that can be rectified going forward, but
it's not gonna be.
It's not going to be. I mean, you hope for his sake and the sake of the NBA too, because Embiid's a great player to watch, but you can't. Luka at 20, Jokic is about his age. You can operate with under the Jokic scape of okay, we've got 8 to 9 years of greatness out of Jokic still to worry about, and then as a diminishing player, he's still going to be very useful. With Embiid, it's handful. Got about 4 or 5 years left of great Embiid, maybe. So every year that they're not getting to the finals and they're not making deep playoff runs is another tough one because you're I don't know how many more of these we're going to really have in great opportunity. So hopefully Embiid can stay healthy moving forward because I'd love to see him in big playoffs moments and big playoff spots to really gauge how great of a player he is because that's where you gauge it. But we'll see moving forward, obviously. This offseason is going to be huge for them.
Yeah, I mean, in his case with the injuries, I mean, he came into the league like that.
Yep.
I think he basically missed his first 2 seasons, if not a season and a half. And honestly, this has gone better than we could have ever imagined. It seemed like he was going to have more of a Zion type trajectory where it
Yeah.
just like wasn't going to be playing much at all. And we've really gotten quite a bit of regular season play and playoff play from him. He's just never healthy when it comes to the playoffs. I don't see that getting better. I think he's already 30 or 31, so I don't necessarily see that getting better as he ages unless he drops like 20 or 30 pounds. Like, dude's got to be 270, 280, carrying a lot of weight on those knees. So, you know, time will tell. And if they get a Paul George, that'll help, certainly, especially with, again, how Maxey plays. And, you know, that three really could play well together. It's just a matter of Paul George wants to actually go there. But, yeah, I would love to see Embiid in the conference finals one day. This was an incredible place for them to be.
Yep.
It really was, because you would have had the Pacers this coming round, and you know you really got to like your matchup, especially with Embiid going against their bigs. Just like their matchup in general with them, especially, you know, Nick Nurse is your coach and everything. You could have been right there facing the Celtics in the conference finals, but you know the Knicks will be in that spot.
And moving on to the Pacers Bucks, to slide right into that, talking about them, that's one of those ones where obviously Giannis gets hurt. He's been getting hurt more and more as of late in his career. Dame gets injured and then he comes back, but still Indiana just runs all over them. Chris Middleton getting hurt often. Now Giannis' possibility to get hurt with Dame has been injured in his past. Not that this was like the only year they could ever win it, but it's just going to be interesting moving forward to see what goes on with the Milwaukee roster, Milwaukee team, how they can kind of fill it out around Dame, Giannis, Chris Middleton, what goes on going there. But shout out to the Pacers. They played great. They're fun to watch, especially when they're passing the ball. It's moving. They're shooting a lot of threes. Nembhard, Naismith, Turner, obviously Halliburton putting up shots. Obi Toppin. They're fun. So I'm glad that they're going to be in the second round against the Knicks. I think that they're going to have a fun matchup with the Knicks. But the Bucks leaving the playoffs back-to-back years in the first round would not have been what I thought if you would have brought me back 2 years ago, right after the Warriors won the championship. Obviously, like that year going in. So it's odd. It's been odd for the Bucks.
Yeah, I mean, you know, injury luck with them, obviously.
Yeah.
If you don't have Giannis the whole series and Dame one of the games, right? Was it one game he missed or two?
He got injured at the end of game 4, and then he missed game 5 and then came back.
Missed game 5 and then played game 6. Yeah. Just unlucky. And they had a weird season anyway. You know, firing Adrian Griffin, who Giannis wanted. Then they bring in Doc. Obviously, it was up and down with Doc, him coming in midseason. And you just see they don't have any depth. When you're playing Pat Bev that much, it's not something you really want to rely on. And he played well for them, honestly, in games 5 and 6. But
he's so stupid. I was just
Pat
thinking
Bev,
of his interview. I don't know, you subscribe to my pod? No, okay, no, I don't want. Nope. I don't want to hear from you throwing the balls at the fans in the stand. Oh, Pat Bev.
He's a clown. Like, that was just clown shit. Like, how he conducted himself. He shows his ass a lot. Like, when he shoved, I know fans don't love Chris Paul, and fans certainly don't love Pat Bev either. Those are both players people hate. But when he shoved Chris Paul in the back for staring him down in the playoffs that time, that was some bitch shit. Throws a ball at a fan. For what reason? Like, what are you doing? Like, that's just like, how old are you? And then, you know, is disrespectful to an esteemed reporter, or she might even be a producer, but
I think she's been a reporter for like 25
pod.
years. Like, I think it was something like that. She's been like,
oh.
So she's like respected within the realm of the media. So like she's been doing this for a while.
You don't subscribe to my podcast, so I'm not gonna do an interview like the other ones. Like, does every other reporter there fucking subscribe to your podcast? I doubt it. So that was just clown shit by him. But the Bucks, you know, Sixers, like I said, you might feel unlucky if you're the Sixers because Embiid wasn't healthy, but Embiid was out there. You didn't have, I mean, even if you have Dame for that game 4 or game 5, sorry.
Yeah.
And maybe at full strength for that game 4, because that was a wild game. That was The game went into double OT, I believe, or just maybe OT. I don't remember. But, Dame gets injured and he was basically playing decoy in that game. So maybe you feel like you can pull that one out. Obviously, that's a tough matchup anyway for them. They had trouble with that all year. But man, even Dame injured in game 6 was hooping too. So you really do got to feel like, forget Giannis. I think if they had depth, I think they play that better. And you could see Doc really scrambling for the right rotations. So it was a tough task to ask anyway. I'd kind of bounced all over my expectations for them. I know when originally they made the Dame trade, I thought it was going to be like, Giannis was KG. I thought Dame was going to be like Paul Pierce, taking the big shots at the end of games. And I thought Chris Middleton would be a lot like Ray Allen, spotting up, getting all kinds of open threes. I think going into the playoffs, Keenan, I think we only got 5 games where those 3 played together the entire season. So, in that case, once it started to be like that and you could tell that they could not play defense the majority of the season, my expectations for the Bucks really started to change into what they are next year and going forward, because I think they'll be able to fill out their roster a little better. I don't really know what their cap situation is, but you still have trade pieces, whether you want to trade Middleton and Lopez or whoever. There is avenues to where you could, improve this team. And of course, if you have Giannis alone, you still have a shot at something, right? If he even at least plays, and obviously he gets the calf strain.
Yeah.
But I mean, shit. Honestly, there was moments in game 6 where I felt like the Bucks were, because that game was living between 14 points and 8 points. It seemed like forever.
Yes.
And there was moments where I felt like Middleton and Dame were starting to get it going. And then Bobby Portis would be like, okay, cool, it's my turn. And then just put up a shot. And look, there was a couple times he looked Middleton or Dame off when they had wide open threes after scoring. And then he'd put up a mid-range shot, and then it would just kill their momentum.
Yeah.
I don't want to harp on him too much because he was good for them, especially in game 5. Like he got kicked out in game 4, made up for it in game 5. But I felt there was times in game 6 where he thought too highly of himself, and again was looking off Dame and Chris Middleton, who you'd rather have them shooting open threes than a contested mid-range Bobby Portis shot. But we'll get to really evaluate the Bucks next year when Giannis is healthy, when Dame comes back healthy. Doc will have a full season if he comes back as coach. And their roster, especially the bench, I would assume would be a bit more filled out. If not, they're going to have the same problems because they had a weirdly constructed team. They were actually a small team compared to what they used to be. I mean, you got Giannis and you got Portis, and then you pretty much downsize past Middleton. You're immediately going to like Malik Beasley, Pat Connaughton, who I think is like 6'5". So you really don't have a ton of players in that 6'7" range, aside from the young guys. Again, Doc's known for not playing his young guys, so that they didn't get a lot of runs. So a lot of their rotation was guys under 6'4" or 6'4" and under, and then you got the Bobby Portises, Giannis, Brook Lopez. Like, it seemed like you're either big or too small on that team. So they had a weirdly constructed team. So I'll be looking at what they're like more so next season and beyond. I know people are talking about Stephen A, especially talking about Dame getting traded. There's no reason for it. There's no, you know what I mean? There's no real reason to have that speculation. Dame seemed maybe not happy, maybe not elated to be in Milwaukee after coming from Portland, but he certainly hasn't seemed upset or anything, or, like he wants out. So, no reason to get that narrative started if he hasn't, right? So I expect their core to be back, though, as far as at least Giannis and Dame.
Yeah. Moving forward, when you have those two, you're going to be okay as long as Dame's obviously there, which I assume that he will be. I also just want to say Dame was out game 4 and 5 and then came back 6. Game 3 was the one that he got injured because game 4 they got the doors blown off of them, and then that was a Bobby Portis ejection. Right. Then game 5 they came back because I had forgot too. I thought it was just one, but I was thinking about it. Game 4 doors blown off. Game 5 came back, and that was like, oh, game 5 they actually won that. So maybe game 6 with Dame if they can get Giannis back. So yeah, but the only other series really to talk about fully in depth would be Clippers Mavs, because we really could touch on the Celtics and the Thunder series when we're moving into the next round, because they just did what we expected, which was just take care of business. But speaking of Clippers Mavs, obviously was going on there towards the end. Towards the end of Game 6 was going on, and during the old fun Drake versus Kendrick, Kyrie hits a shot in the corner. I'm like, oh man, all right, this is what's happening. And then I get a message in the group chat saying, oh, Drake released. I almost said Kanye. Then Kendrick Lamar release, and the Clippers blowing and losing Game 6 just goes out the window. But that series didn't end the way I thought it to, but it started the way it did. Like Game 4, as we were talking, we're like, okay, first 4 games go exactly as expected. And then, all right on cue it up. James Harden has one of those games, and he has himself a Game 5 performance for the ages. His 2 of 11, which is the 10th game of his career that he has only made 2 or fewer shots on 10 or more attempts. So basically shooting 20% or less on 10 attempts, which is the most all time. Just does exactly what he does. And then Game 6, I don't think he played terrible. He didn't shoot efficiently, but he was passing the ball pretty decently. But again, Game 5, that was the one you needed, because going to Dallas in a Game 6 and a closeout game with Kyrie and Luka, good luck. And obviously their luck, it was not on their side, but good luck going back to Dallas and getting that one. So
luck is never on the Clippers side.
No, I was gonna say
will never be on the Clippers side.
Yeah, no, luck is never. The one time they get to the conference finals is without Kawhi, so they don't even have their best play. Like, the luck is never going to be on the Clippers side. But it was pretty much once the third quarter came around, they were like, "Oh man, yep, this is the Clippers team." And not that I expected the series to go exactly like this, but I did. I remember we had this long conversation, and obviously you didn't presume Kawhi Leonard to not be healthy, because obviously you said if the health presumed, but I was like, if this comes down to James Harden being great at some point, I don't have faith in it, which is why my faith for the Clippers was lower. But that's not exactly obviously how everything played out, but that was the reason why my faith for the Clippers was lower. Obviously you were thinking Kawhi was going to be there with Paul George, so they didn't need it. But your faith is in James Harden. It's a tough place to be. It's a real tough place to be. It's not only him, though.
Well, you get the full.
It's not only him.
You get the full James Harden experience, because in Game 4, I believe it was Game 4 anyway, where he completely shuts it down. Him and Paul George, like,
amazing. That's how it happens.
just like when you got it with James Harden. Surprisingly, last year in Game 5, where he had an incredible game, where he was the best player on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And then we said after that Game 4, we recorded last Monday, and you shocked me. You said the Clippers were going to win on the road. Or sorry, I think it would have been going back to LA. So you said the Mavericks were going to win on the road, and the Clippers
for some
win
reason
on the road in Game 6. So it sounded like you had more confidence in them, because, I thought it was going to be Clippers take care of business at home, Mavs take care of business at home, and then Game 7 forward all, and then we'll go from there. Which in that case, without Kawhi, I'm favoring Luka. I would have been scared to death. So I was not feeling good about my Clippers pick as soon as they lost Game 5.
I just want to say this real quick before you go on. My thoughts with James Harden is when you don't have full confidence in James Harden to get it done, is when he plays his best, which is mentally why I was like, Game 6, going back to Dallas, he's going to play better. And because like the pressure is not going to be on him like it is in other situations. That was kind of my mindset there. But then as I was like going into Game 6, like actually it happening after Dallas won, I was like, why did I think that? I think Dallas is winning this game. So I don't know my prediction after the prediction, and after Game 5, I was like, wait a second. I don't think Dallas is losing this game now. So yeah, my thought process was debunked by myself literally 24 hours after Dallas won in Game 5. But go on with what you're saying.
Yeah, so I actually missed the first half of Game 5. And I'm looking at the box score, and I see how everyone, namely Harden, is playing. And I'm like, oh, all right, I see what this is already. And to my surprise, when I saw the second half, the Clippers, not Harden was Harden, whatever, but the Clippers themselves were playing hard and just couldn't get shots in.
Yep.
It seemed like everything was contested. They were just having a hard time making anything, whether it was open shots, contested shots, whatever. So credit to the Mavs, but it really seemed like they were playing hard, just couldn't get the ball to go in, which happens. You know, there's nothing you can do when that happens. Game 6, however, and this is what I did not account for, and this is the type of stuff you just forget, and the type of stuff where you're like, you know, because I was big on it, you know, being a Ty Lue coach team. I was big on how Paul George is still a great player.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he might be all NBA this year. And how Harden's still a great player that, even though you don't want to rely on him in a big game, that, you know, if he's your second or third option or fourth option, you know, maybe it's a little different, or in this case, third option. And again, he showed up in game 4, but, you know, once they lost game 5, I lost confidence in them. And then game 6, again, what I did not account for was, man, the Mavs were hungry. Like, they were ready to close them out, and the Clippers just did not respond. You know, the Mavs were playing like it was game 6. Clippers were playing like it was game 1 almost. You know, they had the playoff intensity, but they did not have elimination game intensity. And that's where I was very disappointed in Paul George more than James Harden. We've seen that tons of times with James Harden. But it seemed like Powell and Westbrook and those guys were given more effort than Paul George. And it's not that Paul George wasn't playing with effort. It was just like no urgency. I expected more urgency from PG. He's been in those type of games too. So for him to play like that, they did not shoot the ball well. Someone said Paul George and James Harden had tour dates shooting, you know, they were like 10 for 24, all that. They're shooting like tour dates, but thank God Drake and Kendrick dropped, right? So that took all the focus off them, because it would have been a typical Clippers, you know, just flame-throwing session on Twitter and on social media had Drake and Kendrick not dropped. Because, I couldn't even tell you really how that game ended. The one thing I'll remember the most about that game, because, again, I'm trying to keep up with the disc while watching this game. I'm trying to see, okay, are they actually going to bring it back? It seemed like they were in that 12 to 14 to 8 range and just couldn't get over the hump. And with about a minute 30, 2 minutes left, down 14, where you can still make a little bit of a run, both benches cleared. Both coaches cleared their benches, which I thought that was a little bold from the Mavericks. I was like, okay, you're going to put your bench in, and while the Clippers still have their starters in, and then Ty Lue pulls his guys, waves the white flag. I couldn't really believe that. I was honestly pretty shocked by that. But, you know, that series for the first 4 games, it lived up to every bit of expectation I had. Like you said, it was everything I expected. And then games 5 and 6, it was cool. It was a good game. It was good to see the Mavericks really find themselves as far as defensively and offensively. They really found their niche. I think that's going to be an extremely interesting series with them and the Thunder. Yep. I really don't know where I'm leaning with that series, honestly. But, you know, that one and the Philly Knicks series I was most looking forward to. And it felt like the Clippers and Mavs just kind of let me down there at the end. More so the Clippers, obviously. Yeah. I thought for sure that series was going to go to 7, and we only got 6. But it's all good.
Yeah, so Clippers.
So overall, was that your favorite series? What was your favorite series from the first round?
I honestly think that one was, and then Sixers Knicks was my second. And then and then probably third, Cavs Magic. I did like the Cavs Magic. The first 3 or 4 games were blowouts, but then afterwards the games got close. One thing I did want to say, though, as we were talking about it, it wasn't just the perfect Friday for the Clippers. It was the perfect weekend for the Clippers. So, obviously, you lose Friday, but you can't even get the social media hate that you normally would get, like the instant Twitter hate and all that stuff. Then Saturday goes on, and Anthony Edwards puts up 43, and then now the next Jordan and all that kind of stuff's going on. And then Sunday's a game 7. So then now you're not even really talking about it on like your Monday talk shows, because you're really focused on Anthony Edwards. You're focused on the game 7 and things like that, previewing these new series because the Timberwolves and Nuggets play again tonight. So it's like the Clippers just get lost in everything, which is perfect for them. Like, it couldn't have been a better weekend to suck. This was the weekend to not be good for the Clippers, and they chose the greatest weekend. They should be writing thank you notes to Kendrick Lamar and Drake. Like, hey, thanks, guys. We appreciate. Steve Ballmer should be sending them checks. Like, yep, thank you very much, keeping us a little bit better over here. But second round, do you want to segue into the Anthony Edwards versus Jokic matchup, game 1, or did you want to start with other series?
Let's start with the other series. Let's do it like this. We'll make predictions for the second round, right? And up to you. Do you want to start with Nuggets Timberwolves, and then let's do that. Let's start with Nuggets Timberwolves since we've already had them play.
Okay,
right, so go ahead.
Going into game 1. My predictions was Nuggets in 6 or 7. I still have the Nuggets winning this series. I'm just now leaning more towards 7 than 6. But the Nuggets are still my prediction going into this. I think that they absolutely can be beat by this Timberwolves team. It's just because out of all the teams, they match up very well with them. Obviously, you've got Gobert, you got Towns that you can throw at Jokic. Naz Reid's athletic, but he's obviously not the biggest of guys, but he's still an athletic guy. And
Jamal's pretty big too.
No, he is, but I'm just saying, I was just defensively, that's not his prowess. Obviously, he's an offensive, but so that's what I was saying. But it's still a body you can throw at Jokic off, and then Jamal Murray. You've got Daniels, you've got Alexander Walker, Mike Conley's a veteran who knows how to play defense, and obviously you have Anthony Edwards too. So they match up with the two best offensive players on the Nuggets well. Then they can rebound. Obviously, Gobert is going to be patrolling the paint. It's going to be tough for him there. Cat can stretch the floor, so obviously they probably, depending at times, you might try to get that switch and have Jokic on him just to try to pull him away from the basket a little bit more. But really, they don't have an answer for Anthony Edwards. I know KCP is a good defender. Michael Porter Jr. is a better defender than when he came into the league. And then Aaron Gordon's going to see him too. But that Anthony Edwards guy is a problem. And I was talking on the last one. I was like, he's top 8 in the league for me. He's definitely a superstar. He's officially a superstar, top 8. He's trying to climb the ladder and get higher than 8. And this playoff run could do it, obviously, if he was to get deeper and deeper into the playoffs. I don't want to say how far because we're not there yet. Could definitely, obviously, propel him. But this series is going to be fun. This series is going to be, as you said, a heavyweight. Not a light heavyweight, but a true heavyweight. Feels like a conference finals battle. But I do have Nuggets in 7. But Anthony Edwards is an issue. He's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Wolves lost to the Nuggets in 5 last year, and I thought they played the Nuggets better than anybody. In fact, I think I even said it was a 6-game series a couple weeks ago because I genuinely remembered it that way.
Yeah,
it played like a 6-game series. The Timberwolves size, not just at the big positions, not just at power forward and center, but their wings, their guards, everything about them. I mean, you could play Kyle Anderson at the 1.
Yeah.
And that's why, I mean, even going back to the Gobert trade, I never really killed it because I was like, I thought they gave up too much, but I thought the fit was going to be okay just as far as, all right, this is automatically going to make you better defensively. You've still got a quality player here in Gobert. And then they just kept adding vets. I think that's the smartest thing they did. Conley is such an underrated player for them. Kyle Anderson's such an underrated player for them. And the way they developed McDaniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker behind them, just being serviceable 3-and-D wings on top of that. And then Ant just ascending. He's only 22 and he's more than ready for, what's ahead of him. Much like Luka, right? So the fact that you nailed that pick and a draft that could have went in any direction, as we know, that's just, that was the COVID draft. So you really didn't know what you were getting. And, they struck diamonds and gold with Anthony Edwards.
Yeah.
And, look, I mean, they stole game 1. I knew there was a possibility they could have won game 1, but I'm like, they're not beating Denver game 1 in Denver. That's not going to happen. And they won pretty decisively. Like, it was a close game overall, but Denver had all they could do to stop Anthony Edwards down the stretch. And that's the thing with Ant. He's got like he's almost got a linebacker body to him, kind of like Zion. Like, he's bigger. So he's already, between that and his first step, you can't keep him from the rim. And I think I mentioned this in the last podcast. I don't necessarily think he's like, like KD with the jump shot. I don't think his jump shot's all the way there. But you got to back off 3-4 steps from him so he doesn't get to the rim on you. So he's shooting open jump shots. So every jump shot he's getting right now is pretty easy for him. So if you're getting 2 or 3 good looks on top of getting to the rim whenever you want, then those contested jump shots are easy for you. If you're getting 2 or 3 easy knockdowns, and that's exactly what happened these last couple games where, okay, you can't stop me from getting to the rim. Oh, you're backing off me and you're giving me the shot. Well, shit, that's 4 or 5 buckets for me, in 10 minutes. Those contested threes, those contested jump shots now, I'm completely in a rhythm. And that's where they become completely hard to stop because they are so fundamentally sound on defense and offense. They share the ball well. You don't really find many bad possessions from the T-Wolves. Maybe Karl Anthony Towns here and there when he's jacking up a 3, but you expect that. And you give him that freedom because, Towns is an offensive talent. But, you combine that with how hard they play on defense and how hard they're, to get any action off of. If you're Jamal Murray, who ended up playing really well in the second half, but, you saw in the first half how they can give him problems.
Yep.
And if Jamal Murray gets injured at all, if he has to miss a game here at all, that's going to be real trouble for the Nuggets. I think this is going 7. I would have picked Nuggets in 7 before the series. I'm sticking with Nuggets in 7. And I think I would assume they're going to win tonight. I would assume. Because if they go down 2-0, giving up 2 on their home floor, it's going to be rough. I personally don't think. Go ahead.
I kind of hope it does. I hope it goes down 2-0 because I like to see the greatness of greats like get pushed to the brink. And last year, obviously, Jokic went on his playoff run, but the deepest series he went was 6 with the Suns. But that didn't even feel like, as you just said, the Timberwolves felt like their toughest series, but that was only a 5-game series. I would love to see Jokic down 0-2 back against the wall and see how he responds. I'd love it. Just like all-time greats need to be in those kind of positions of like, true adversity, especially because like his adversity really hasn't had it with like a full roster and a full team yet. So I'd love to see him down 0-2. So I kind of hope the Timberwolves win tonight.
They did get down 3-1 twice in the bubble.
Yeah.
That's a little different. It was a little easier to come back in the bubble.
Yeah, I was going to say,
advantage.
And we didn't feel like Jokic was that yet. Like he wasn't, like he was still obviously an amazing, like top flight player, but he wasn't best player in the league, true championship contenders every single year now. True, like
he was that level of player though. He was already reaching that point to where he was Mr. Triple Double.
Oh yeah.
This and that. He was already an upper echelon player.
He was a top flight player, but he wasn't the top player. If that's what I'm saying, like
no,
he wasn't he wasn't at his pinnacle yet. He was close. He was getting there, but he wasn't what Jokic is now and what we perceive him to be now. So I would love for him to get down 0-2 and see how he responds because I think that we might see a 40-point triple double in Game 3, if that was to happen.
I think we're getting that tonight.
No, we could get that tonight too. I'm just saying, if he goes down 0-2, I think a 40-point triple double is right around the corner. But I think we're gonna get a great Jokic game tonight.
Hey, I mean, I said that a couple weeks back, and you kind of pushed back, right? I was like, the truly great players when their backs against the wall. I think I kind of limited it to a Game 7, but I think I meant. When their backs are against the wall, that's when you truly see their greatness.
Oh, yeah.
So
I agreed with that. I just said it doesn't have to be a Game 7 to have your back against the wall. That was where more of our argument came. Because my argument was like Steph down 2-1 in Boston, his back's against the wall. Like absolutely against the wall. And like you were just saying that a Game 7 just makes it even more enhanced. And I get what you're saying, but I don't think you have to be in a Game 7 specifically to have your back firmly against the wall. LeBron down 3-2 in a Game 6 in Boston. We saw the 45-point explosion he had, kind of thing. But we both have Nuggets in 7. We both love this series because it's It's going to be amazing. I see more and more people picking the Timberwolves and more people joining the Anthony Edwards bandwagon. Like
Trent's got Trent's got Timberwolves in 5. He originally said Timberwolves in 6, and after game 1, he's like T-Wolves in 5.
Trent, we'll give Trent this.
Might have been half joking.
Trent's been an Anthony Edwards guy for a while. Like he's off because I've obviously talked to him about basketball quite often. He's been an Anthony Edwards guy for a long while. So this isn't something that like he just hopped on like last week. Like he's been an Anthony Edwards.
No, for sure.
No, I was just saying because some people are like, oh man, that guy Anthony Edwards. Now that he's being talked about in the media, he's a great player. He's been an Ant fan since his rookie year. Like he's been truly a fan. So. Yeah, but
I personally though I don't believe there is a team in this postseason. Maybe unless the T-Wolves, but I really don't think there's a team in this postseason who could get the Nuggets out of here in less than 7 games. I don't think there's a team that exists that could get them out of here in 6. So
maybe the Timberwolves on their best day, or Boston if everything's clicking for the entire series. The only 2 teams I could see getting them out, and even then, I think
T-Wolves would have to win. T-Wolves would have to win tonight for that to happen.
Yeah.
If they don't win tonight, I think it's almost assuredly going 7. And they match up so well. I would have a hard time I wouldn't have a hard time believing the Nuggets could win in 6 after winning tonight, but it just feels like a 7-game series to me. Feels like it's going to go back and forth.
Yeah. And then we'll go to Thunder Mavericks. I like this series a lot because I think both teams match up well. The problem that we were talking about last series possible with Chet was that if Zion was there, the fact that they have a big body presence to kind of bully him around. The Mavericks don't have that. Obviously, they've got rim runners and Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively, and PJ Washington stretches the floor for them, but he's also a guy who can kind of get in the paint as well. But it's really Luka and Kyrie. They got Jalen Williams. They've got Shea. They've got like this. They match up well on both sides. I think this series probably goes 7, and I have the Mavs in 7. I think I had the Mavs in 6 in my prediction, but I think Mavs in 7 would be where I'm leaning right now.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, both this Knicks and Pacers series as well as this series, I'll just be honest. I would like to see the Knicks win against the Pacers, and we'll get there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather see Knicks Celtics in the conference finals than Celtics Pacers. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to this series, and let's assume the Nuggets get through, right? Let's just assume the Nuggets get through because that's what we both picked. We both picked them to go to the finals, okay?
Yep.
Whether it was the Nuggets or the Timberwolves, though, you'd want to see Luka versus their best player.
Oh,
and that's no slight to Shy or anybody because SGA's been a top 5 player this year. He was probably a top 10 player last year. Like he's just continued to ascend, and he's been a young rising star. Like I love everything. He reminds me so much of Kawhi on how he ascended. Like he was just kind of there and you knew he was there. He had all these star qualities, but then eventually overnight he just kind of takes to that next level. And Here we are. So I wouldn't hate if the Thunder got there necessarily. So you could say I'm almost rooting for the Mavs this series, but when I look at it, this is my classic type of I'll take the deeper team over the team with stars. And that was kind of my philosophy with the Clippers had they had Kawhi in the Mavs series. And you got to feel a little more stable about the Thunder than you do the Clippers just on health alone, right? And the Mavericks don't have that big presence really like a Zubac who you can throw against the Thunder. So you ain't really going to have to worry about that. Really, it's going to come down to can you give Luka problems like the Clippers did, which the Thunder could.
Oh, yeah.
Will they though? How do you actually think they're going to give Luka problems like Terrence Mann did? You know, having the ability to switch off of Terrence Mann to maybe a PJ Tucker or a Paul George. Like they gave Luka real problems. He did not have. That's probably his worst playoff series he's had. The stats will probably still look good, but as far as field goal percentage, far as shooting percentage and all that, he really had to work for his shots, and he didn't live in comfort like he normally does. So
No,
personally,
not at all.
well, you answer that first. You answer
No,
that first. I
you're
wanna hear
right.
what
That
you
was
think.
his worst series, and it was probably like I think it was like 32-8 and like 10, or like 31-8 and 10. But like the efficiency wasn't there. It's just funny because he can get those kind of numbers and not play the greatest. But I definitely do think that they're going to give him problems. I think they have the bodies to throw at Luka. They're a young, athletic team, so they have multiple people that they could throw at Luka. But I do think that Luka, it's going to come down to his 3-point shooting because he was missing open ones against the Clippers too. Like he was obviously they were making him take the tough step backs and things, but he wasn't getting the same lift on some of those threes, and it might have been because I know obviously there's like a whole knee kind of ankle thing going on with him right now, but also having to work defensively on James Harden, having to see Paul George, getting them in because they're putting him in a lot of actions that his legs weren't fully there. We'll see if the Thunder do the same thing, trying to get Shea on him a lot. Obviously, he'll probably be guarding someone like Giddey for the most part, but I definitely think that the Thunder can give him some problems defensive on the offensive end, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I know people said something was going on with the knee. He seems fine to me. I mean, that was the best defense and most active defense we've seen him play. So I do wonder if it was more so he was tired from defense because, I mean, he really hardly ever like has to really work on defense. And the Clippers clearly made that a point of their game plan.
Mm-hmm.
And he held up. Like, aside from Harden cooking him in that game 4, like repeatedly just getting by him and Doncic's not looking like he had any ability to stay in front of him.
Yeah.
He really did work, especially against like Paul George, even against Harden. Like once after game 4, like he really started to defend Harden well.
Yep.
So, you know, maybe if you're under the school of thought that like they can't really make him work on on defense, if he kind of gets to rest, you know, I think that would be the difference because they said something about his knee, but he seems to be pushing the ball fine. He's not laboring like Embiid. Like he looks like Doncic. Like everything about him looks.
Game 4 and 5, he looked like a little hobbled in game, like to the point where it's like kind of regular playoff stuff. And then game 6, he looked fine. Like it looked like he more so tweaked something rather than truly being hurt. So like that kind of thing. So I don't think like that injury's got to be like, oh, something we really got to watch out for. But I think it's something that if they do lose, it's some people will bring up in their arguments for it. But if they win, then no one will mention.
Of course
anything.
they will, but
you know, it's like if they lose, this is brought up. But when they win, it's fine. Like it wasn't even a thing. So
yeah, no, I think Luka's fine. And look, if we're saying that's his worst series, then you know, what do you think's more likely? He continues that trend of missing all these threes, which he very well could. That's common in the playoffs. Or,
yep.
You know, does he get the series that I, in my bold predictions, gave you, where he's, you know, ripping 50-point games and 40-point games? You know, I think this matchup kind of gives credence to it because the Thunder are so thin. They can defend. They got all kinds of length. But, man, Luka, we talk about Anthony Edwards being able to get to the rim. Luka could live at the rim in this series if he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So that almost makes me want to sway it. You did get Josh Giddey, of all people, who people were giving the Ben Simmons treatment a lot of the season when it comes to him hitting threes. You had games where he was going 4 for 6 from 3, like multiple games in the first round series. So if you're getting that level of shooting from everybody, Thunder really do have a chance. I'm going to say this is a 7-game series. I'm going to lean Mavericks though. I'm going to lean Mavericks because I think it's a favorable matchup for Luka specifically. You know, Kyrie might give you a bad shooting game here or there. His guys were still hitting the threes though. You know, that's really what kept him in the Clippers series is they really did start hitting threes. And you're going to have to pick your poison really. If you're going to stay at home on the shooters, then it's going to be 1-on-1 for Luka. And if that's the case, it could be a long series for Thunder, and it could be, you know, it's funny because Luka's a point guard technically, but you know, he might be the one that's putting his body into Chet and really getting him into foul trouble. You know what I mean? Like we were talking about with Zion, that could be Luka for the Mavericks as far as the inside presence. So we'll see. I really do think it's a 50-50 series. I'm going to lean Mavericks, even though normally it seems like I would pick the Thunder in this situation due to their depth, due to their defensive versatility. But I have a hard time believing Luka's going to have back-to-back subpar series. So.
Yeah. We both have Nuggets in 7. We both have Mavs in 7. We'll go over to Boston and then end with the Knicks Pacers. So Boston is seeing Cleveland. Of course, Cleveland just coming off a 7-game series with Orlando. I know Boston's not going to have Kristaps for this series I don't think they're having from this series, and probably not next series if they get there. Maybe halfway through next series possibly, but I don't think it's going to be an issue. Jared Allen shouldn't probably be their game 1, but Jared Allen will be coming back after the rib injury. I think Cleveland stretches this to 6. Boston, I think, is just too good right now. This is going to be a big series for Tatum. I know Okoro was really giving Paolo problems, and as you were saying earlier, Paolo and Tatum have similar games. Okoro's been a very good defender. I know JB Bickerstaff called him the best defender in the league. I don't know about that, but he's still, that's just showing the fact that he is a good on-ball defender. But the thing that Boston has a little bit too much scoring depth. Derek White has done what Derek White does in the playoffs and just ascends. I got Boston in 6.
Yeah, I have Celtics in 5.
5.
I don't think Cleveland has the scoring to keep up with them. You saw how Orlando, they bother Darius Garland quite a bit with their size compared to him. And, Garland could be an explosive scorer. He showed he can be an explosive scorer. I just think this is a bad matchup for him. And I think it'll be a lot of Donovan Mitchell-centric offense.
Yep.
If you're doing that against a team like Boston with their defensive versatility and the level they can hit threes at, that'll be the thing. If Cleveland can defend the 3-point line, it'll keep them in this series and give them a chance to go 6. I just don't see that happening. I think Boston has way too many options, even without Porzingis, and they're probably the best defensive team in the league. Or if not, they have that ceiling. So that's a very tough task for Cleveland. Yeah, that's a very tough task for Cleveland. I expect Donovan Mitchell to do his thing. It's hard to stop Donovan Mitchell anyway. He's so good at getting downhill, getting you on your heels. So he'll definitely bring one. I expect Boston to go up 2-0, and then maybe Cleveland wins that game 3. But it's a lot to ask for Cleveland to beat Boston. So if they got to, it would have to be because Donovan Mitchell, gave you that 45-point game and such, or maybe even Garland gave you a 28-point game off 6 threes type of game along with Donovan Mitchell. Mm-hmm. So it could happen. I could definitely see it going 6, but when you get Boston's just treasure chest of people you can throw at them as far as defensively and just to get open threes. Like, they're just trying to make as many threes as possible, and it's hard to score on them. So it's a bad matchup for Cleveland at the end of the day. So Boston in 5.
The Boston just has a lot of wing defenders too, and obviously your best players are your 2 guards. So you're right. It's tough. They could go 5. I think Donovan gets you 1, and then hopefully Garland and Strus and everyone else, like the 3-point shooting of the Cavs, obviously plus Donovan too, but hopefully they can get you 1, and then you try to roll it from there. But see what happens.
If they had Porzingis, I'd probably pick this in a sweep.
I'd pick it in a definitive 5. I think Donovan could try to get him 1, but we've also seen him get 50 and lose, so like he might not get that 1.
Yeah,
but
this could still very well be a sweep if Boston's on their shit like they should be. They're healthy, and again, if you can take Garland out, you're gonna have no offense if you're Cleveland. If you take Garland out, if Garland's rolling and he's the best version of Garland, this could be a 6-game series, maybe even 7. But I don't see it. It's a very tough matchup for him to be going at Drew Holiday and Derek White.
Mm-hmm.
And if you see Tatum and Brown, like, they just got way too many wing defenders. And yeah, Donovan Mitchell might eat, but that might be about it. Evan Mobley's offensive game ain't there yet. So,
yep.
But we'll see.
We will.
And we'll see it being a sweep too.
Last but not least, Pacers Knicks. Got a nice 90s series going on here. But this is a series with 2 guys who obviously Halliburton stole the early part of the season, in-season tournament, how good he was. And then obviously Jalen Brunson just continued to ascend, and now he's at an upper echelon level now too. So these are 2 point guards who are trying to claw their way into true superstardom. And I think that I know how you feel about Halliburton, but I think this series is going to be very fun. You got an up and down team who doesn't play a whole lot of defense against a team that has all defense, and then obviously Jalen Brunson. So I hope the Knicks win this series, because I think I was talking with a couple friends at Dick's, and I was thinking to myself, game 3. Just again, I'm saying game 3 for a reason. Game 3, Boston going to Madison Square Garden in a conference finals would legitimately be one of the greatest atmospheres we've ever seen. But in recent memory, obviously. But I think a New York in a conference finals is going to be an immaculate scene. I've got the Knicks in 6. I think defensively, when the Pacers aren't hitting threes, they're a very beatable team. You just need to not allow them to get to 30 assists, because that's really where they're become an unbeatable team, because that means they're up and down, they're flowing, Halliburton's flowing, but they got enough bodies to throw at him, especially if he's not going to be as aggressive offensively. He's been more aggressive over the last few games, but I got Knicks in 6 in this series.
I want to pick the Knicks in 6. Right as I'm talking right now, I really don't know who I'm picking. Whoever I pick, though, it will be in 6 games. If Halliburton is continuously aggressive, because like you said, he started to get more aggressive towards the end of the series as far as looking for a shot, as far as looking for the 3. Yeah. If you get that version of Halliburton, I think they really could just get the Knicks out of here. The Knicks obviously are as gritty as they come. You got Josh Hart. I mean, Josh Hart's stats are insane. I haven't looked since the end of the series, but when I looked mid-series, he was shooting 46% from 3. He was averaging 13 boards. I think he was giving you something like 17 and 13 with 46% shooting. If you keep up that pace, that's as good of a role player or third guy as like Draymond in his prime to me. You know what I mean? Like just that level of shooting mixed with that level of rebounding, and he gives you defense. All the hustle plays. Dante DiVincenzo, who's been probably their second best offensive player down the stretch here, he didn't really have a good first round series.
No.
And, what better team to go against than the Pacers, who don't really play any defense. So there's a world where they just get it going, and, all the players that would be a question mark in the Philly series, they can just get open threes in this series type thing. Yep. Problem is with Indiana, and this is where I favored Philly, really was, the fact that they had Maxey and Embiid and hypothetically at that time a Buddy Hield, a Oubre. They had a few players that could get their own shots. They just had more offensive opportunity than the Knicks. Knicks took Hield out of that series, obviously. Tobias Harris did his thing where he comes and goes. But the Pacers, too, they have a lot of offensive options, more so than the Knicks. So if they could get any defensive effort at all and, continue to get this scoring output from Miles Turner and Pascal Siakam, and then, keep getting this aggression from Halliburton, who's obviously at least setting the table, but he's not as offensively aggressive as he was early in the season. But if you can get 15 to 20 points a game from Halliburton on top of the assists, and you're playing that's the key. If they're playing at their pace, they can win this series. If they're playing in the Knicks, neighborhood and it's slow ball and it's junkyard ball, it could be Knicks in 5. I'm rooting for the Knicks. I want Knicks Celtics because, man, I think the Celtics would honestly sweep the Pacers probably if it came to that, or it'd be a 5-game series. But I'm going to go Knicks in 6 as well. Look at us. We're just agreeing all the way across the board here. But I'm going to go Knicks in 6. I really do think they could lose, though. I don't know if this is the best matchup, but it all depends on who's taking control of the series. Are we playing at the Pacers pace, or are we slowing the ball down, or are we playing at the Knicks pace? So I'm very interested to see how this goes.
Last thing I say before we transition, Kyle, just to confirm what you were saying, Josh Hart for the series averaged 17 points, 12 rebounds, 4.5 assists, shot 43% from the 3-point line.
That's incredible.
40% from the floor, but you'll take it. But that's
incredible. Listen, this is what we're gonna do. This is gonna be part 1. And then on your feed, you will also see a part 2 where me and Keenan are reacting to the Kendrick Lamar Drake beef. So this is part 1. Me and Keenan reacting to round 1 of the NBA playoffs, round 2 preview as well. Listen, go check out the Warner Brothas Podcast, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all that, blah, 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 all the social media stuff. But we're really getting to the shits in part 2 with Kendrick and Drake. I can't wait to talk about it.
I can't either.
See y'all in a sec. Just press forward on the queue, listen to the second episode, and we'll see you there.
Like a man.